And I
So
think it's really important to also acknowledge that it's not just the client that you're working with, it's very much the support network. They're just as important because they're obviously going through it all as well. So to be able to, yeah, assist the client, but also work with the family and use a really collaborative approach, I think, yeah, it makes all the difference.
how do you recruit the family? Are they usually involved in the sessions? Do the sessions all happen in clinic or do they happen at home? How does that work?
With the clients that I have, most of them come to the clinic, and it's with their partners. So as much as I can do in an hour session, really the rest of the time, every minute of every day, they're with their carer. So I want essentially to be able to train them to be a mini speech pathologist that's specific to the client because they're going to do most of the work. I'm just teaching them how to do it.
This is the Recovery After Stroke podcast with Bill Gassiamis, helping you navigate recovery after stroke.
Hello and welcome to Recovery After Stroke, a podcast full of answers, advice, and practical tools for stroke survivors to help you take back your life after a stroke and build a stronger future. I'm your host, 3 times stroke survivor, Bill Gassiamis. After my own life was turned upside down and I went from being an active father to being stuck in hospital, I knew if I wanted to get back to the life I loved before, my recovery was up to me. After years of researching and discovering, I learned how to heal my brain and rebuild a healthier and happier life than I ever dreamed possible. And now I've made it my mission to empower other stroke survivors like you to recover faster, achieve your goals, and take back the freedom you deserve. If you enjoy this episode and want more resources, accessible training, and hands-on support, check out my Recovery After Stroke membership community. Created especially for stroke survivors, this is your clear pathway to transform your symptoms, reduce anxiety, and navigate your journey to recovery with confidence. Head to recoveryafterstroke.com to find out more after this podcast. But for now, let's dive right into today's episode. This is episode 150, and my guest today is Olivia O'Hare, a speech pathologist who is also the founder of the annual event, A Night For Aphasia. Olivia O'Hare, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for doing the work that you do, and I'm going to let you explain what that is, but you're you're my favorite kind of person because you guys, like many other people around the planet, and Australia and our communities, help out other stroke survivors. You look for ways to support stroke survivors from the different ailments that they have. So tell me a little bit about the kind of work that you do.
Of course. It's a very nice compliment. Thank you. So we have only just started putting together an awareness campaign called A Night For Aphasia. So I suppose there'd be lots of questions coming through about its specifics, but essentially it is an event, a night that we raise awareness for the condition aphasia and help the wider community as well as allied health professionals, general public, students, whoever wants to come along, learn a little bit more about what aphasia is.
So how did you get an interest in that space though?
Yeah, so it was in my final year of speech pathology as a student. I was working at a hospital rehabilitation centre, and I was given this client all very last minute, which I think is just a fantastic, very, very ironic, fantastic way that it all happened. And I'm really, really thankful for this last minute patient that I got. And there was very limited information provided, so it was really a matter of sort of jumping in and getting to know this patient and their partner. And we were going through some initial rapport and trying to get to know each other a little bit better. And the file that I was reading with the presentation that I was given, something just wasn't right. So going down the track and sort of doing a little bit of research and a bit of investigation, we actually discovered that this person does have aphasia and wasn't accurately diagnosed. And I'm sure you're well aware of the whole element of spontaneous recovery. So that real initial curve where post-stroke you do see some really fantastic gains. And this poor patient wasn't able to have or make those gains because their diagnosis wasn't necessarily accurate. And it's at no fault of any of the doctors or speech pathologists. I think it's purely just to do with the awareness around what aphasia is. So that didn't sit well with me, and that's essentially how ANFO was born.
Wow. You talk about it, it was nobody's fault. And I kind of understand that there's a possibility for people to fall in between cracks. Um, and there's so many reasons why. But did that person have a traumatic brain injury? Did they have a stroke? How did they get to be in front of you?
Yeah, of course. Great question. So they did have quite a large stroke, and they'd gone through the process of this particular hospital, obviously in acute care, then moved to inpatient rehab, and we were then a part of, or my role was part of ex-patient rehab. So they'd come in and we'd work with them. Um, they had quite significant impairments. So this particular patient was completely nonverbal and had paralysis in his left side. So had already done a lot of work, and I'm not sure. I'll kind of explain it, but this particular client was perseverating a lot, so a lot of repetition of certain words and sounds that made them. They were under the impression that they were producing language and sentences that were making sense, but it was the same words and same sounds being repeated. So really difficult, I suppose, in jumping in obviously halfway through, because there was a previous qualified speech pathologist working with them, and sort of coming in as a student with no experience of what aphasia is, and really trying to figure out where they're at and how best you can facilitate their recovery, and work with them to make some gains.
How old were you at the time?
Uh, 25.
And what were you just like a problem solver? Oh, I know how I'm going to fix this. I'm going to help. What's the mindset of somebody who's in that role? Because I'm a bit of a problem solver and I go after problems, and I figure if we go for the solutions and focus on what the solutions are or how we can overcome those problems and spend more time there, we're more likely to get to some kind of an outcome that's better than where we started, right? What kind of curious mind did you have?
Yeah, great question. So I'm definitely considered a bit of a problem solver. I think it was also really fortunate. Obviously, this patient had been through the system literally from day dot to I think it was almost 7 months post stroke from when we met. So fortunate to sort of have that holistic understanding and to see him at that point, not so much from where he started along the journey. So I think that definitely helped. Um, but yeah, it just didn't seem like the facts sort of matched. So fortunately, being a student, all of that research is quite sort of
Fresh.
in the forefront, and yeah,
Mhm.
fresh in your mind. So it kind of yeah, it just fell into place,
Yeah,
which is really lucky.
I had a really interesting experience. I was presenting to the third year occupational therapy students probably about 2015. I think it was March 2015, and I was presenting about my story. They bring in a real live stroke survivor, and I talk about things that are related to stroke to give the students a understanding of what it's like to experience a stroke and then go through the rehabilitation phase, and then what was done well and what may have been missed, and just to give the students an insight into what a stroke survivor's experience is. And I
That's
remember
amazing.
it
Such
was
valuable.
it was brilliant for me to be there, and it was really brilliant for them to have me there, right? It was great all round. And what was interesting is that out of nowhere, one of the students at the end raises a hand and says, "Do you have left side numbness or left side, what did she say? Left side temperature difference, actually, something like that." And she was sitting, I would say, a good 15 rows behind where I was, like in front of me, but like 15 rows back. And I said to her, what makes you say that? She goes, because I noticed in the different color of the skin tone on your hands. and I,
Wow.
and I said to her, well, my gosh, that's an amazing thing to notice, because yes, my left hand is a lot colder than my right hand, so it probably appears more pale as opposed to the other hand. And that's because it's always colder, and I'm not sure whether it's blood flow or whatever, but yes, it is. And I turned to her lecturer and just said, this person, deserves top
Give them
marks.
an
Yeah,
A.
because
That's amazing.
and it was kind of that thing. It was fresh. There must have been something that triggered that for her that was recent.
And I think it's
And
important with aphasia too. I mean, there's so many different presentations, and I think that's an element of the lack of awareness, is that it can be disguised as many other
yeah,
conditions or many other communication disorders. So I think it's a matter of sort of taking that step back and looking at it holistically and being like, okay, hang on a second. There's this which would fit into this category, but there's actually X, Y, Z that would fit into this. And it was just sort of putting all the dots together.
yeah. So what are the presentations of aphasia? What are some of the common ones that people miss?
If you've had a stroke and you're in recovery, you'll know what a scary and confusing time it can be. You're likely to have a lot of questions going through your mind. Like, how long will it take to recover? Will I actually recover? What things should I avoid in case I make matters worse? Doctors will explain things, but obviously you've never had a stroke before. You probably don't know what questions to ask. If this is you, you may be missing out on doing things that could help speed up your recovery. If you're finding yourself in that situation, stop worrying and head to recoveryafterstroke.com, where you can download a guide that will help you. It's called 7 Questions to Ask Your Doctor About Your Stroke. These 7 questions are the ones Bill wished he'd asked when he was recovering from a stroke. They'll not only help you better understand your condition, they'll help you take a more active role in your recovery. Head to the website now, recoveryafterstroke.com, and download the guide. It's free.
So there's a lot of different types of aphasia, and it depends on what part of the brain has been affected. And I'm still learning about aphasia, and I'm trying to raise awareness. So there's still a lot of work that's being done to understand aphasia, and I think not only understand it, but to be able to consolidate it to a point where we can teach the general public or teach someone that might not know as much about the anatomy. I've actually written the different ones down. So there's anomic aphasia, which is fluent. So the output, there's a lot of verbal output, but a lot of those key words are lost. So it's a bit of word finding, like, oh, can you go get that thing? The thing over there. That's sort of there's lots of language coming out, but it's not as specific as we might like. There's Wernicke's aphasia, which is where the Wernicke's part of the brain, that's obviously where the damage has occurred, which typically presents as low receptive. So the understanding and that comprehension, you can see a bit of an impact there. Doesn't mean that intellect isn't intact, and I think that's the most important thing with aphasia, is that all people that have it, intellect is intact. It's just their difficulty to perhaps demonstrate that intellect in whatever way. So there's also mixed and non-fluent aphasia, which can come across as quite effortful speech, and it's a bit of a mix of Wernicke's and Broca's, which is the next one. Broca's is reduced expressive language, so we call that non-fluent aphasia. So very, very limited output, and this is the presentation that my patient had. And then there's global, which is the most severe, and that is essentially all of the above in terms of presentation, and that's obviously really, really life-changing, really difficult.
Yeah. In these levels of aphasia, different types of presentations, is the person able to get a pen and paper and, for example, complete the sentence with that missing word there instead of trying to say it? Would that missing word be there or not?
Depends on the type of aphasia. So for, I think it's See, I'm still getting my head around it. For Wernicke's and anomic aphasia, I do believe that there is a greater ability to be able to write expressively, use your expressive language through written. Um, there are also different levels of that written expression. So it might be more like an elementary level that they can sort of get back up to compared to obviously where they might have been pre stroke or pre traumatic brain injury.
Yeah. So in stroke recovery, the most overused word is neuroplasticity, in that it has this great, it has a connotation of like this amazing thing that's going to happen. We'll just rewire everything and everything will come back and it'll be fine. And I understand how we got to that point because a lot of it is definitely possible to rewire. For example, my leg rewired its ability to walk, even though it has motor sensory neuron issues where it doesn't exactly know how to send information to the brain that it's on the ground, just like my other foot is. It sends that information across slightly differently, but nonetheless, that's enough information to have created a new neural pathway, help me walk and appear as if there's nothing wrong with me or my brain or my body, right? So in aphasia, is neuroplasticity something that can be harnessed in that dramatic inability to express? Can we retrain somebody to learn how to use words again and find ways to make sentences again?
Absolutely. Yep. And whether that in terms of the full extent, so looking at potentially global aphasia, where that's the most severe, whether there's research or not, if that can be done, my belief is absolutely. There's always a way. And I think hope is the most powerful out of everything in terms of neuroplasticity. But yeah, I do believe that, we've had many clients that have worked really hard and gotten back to at least some sort of functional language from none.
Mm. So that's controversial because doctors might say, well, there's no research to back that up. And if there's no research to back that up, there's some anecdotal evidence, but we can't really go by the anecdotal evidence. And I feel like stroke recovery is all actually about the anecdotal evidence. It's actually got nothing to do with the research, although the research is good to put in a book and to tell somebody, with a really massive head brain situation, where they're overthinkers and they're perhaps um, very cognitively intelligent, from a book perspective. If you talk to stroke survivors like I have, there's probably almost 150 podcast episodes now, the anecdotal evidence seems to be really dramatic in expressing the possibility that something is possible beyond what the doctors say. Because believe it or not, many doctors still give the patients this is all you can expect, or we probably shouldn't expect much more from that person, right? So when somebody comes to you and they perhaps have been given the bad news, how do you bring them on board? Because I imagine that part of the therapy actually requires you to recruit that person into having belief and hope, just like you have belief and hope for them. How do you bring them on board when they've had the bad news?
Yeah, great question. So I suppose I'll start with talking about there is a bit of research around the neuroplasticity and reconnecting or re-innovating neural networks. Typically takes around 400. This is what research has suggested, around 400 repetitions to be able to begin that re-innovation, but up to 10 with play. So for me, my approach is very much through high motivation, high enjoyment. And I think that really brings it back to starting off by building rapport and making them feel comfortable and just saying, look, this is what we're going to do. Like, we're going to get there. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Let's get going. Let's have fun while we do it. And then the rest just falls into place.
Wow. Have you had results where the client was even surprised by what they were able to achieve, say, in a couple of sessions or even, many years down the track? Have you had that type of experience where they've been able to say to you, I can't believe I'm talking, or?
Yeah. So I've actually had a client that has been told by multiple allied health professionals, look, this is probably as good as you're going to get, which just is heartbreaking to hear, and it should never be said, even if it might be true. I think there's always hope, and hope is the most important part of recovery for anybody. So I have had a client that's walked through the doors, obviously very deflated, um, being told that yeah, they're not going to get any better, and this is as good as it gets. And they were with aphasia, obviously, and essentially completely nonverbal. And we've now gotten to the point where they have improved so much, very, very slow gains, but gains nonetheless. So they've got 2 or 3 words that they're saying independently, a lot more repetition. In terms of being able to prompt them to get these words out, it's limited now in terms of what I need to do. It's a couple of things here and there, and they're getting there, and I can just see it. We're really, really close. We're on the edge of a big breakthrough with language. So yeah, and I think that's all down to just them enjoying it and being told that they can do it. The human body's amazing.
It is amazing. How does it change their life? Because I imagine life's normal, they have a stroke, life's not normal. There's a lot of emotional challenges associated to not being able to communicate and express yourself and say the things that are important to you, especially with regards to your care. So, how have you found your clients respond to that? Like, what do they say about how it's changed their life? And is it the really big things that changes their lifestyle or their life, or is it little minor things?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's definitely, I mean, just as a speech pathologist, I think we have the best job in the world, and that is very biased. But we, as humans, exist to communicate. So even if that's in a wave or a hug or a smile, um, anything that we can do to help an individual who's fallen so far in terms of their ability to communicate, baby steps, big steps. It's the same level of celebration and success. And it's just, yeah, it's the best job in the world. I feel really lucky.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool job too because you're actually giving people back something that they thought perhaps it was lost and they really used to help solidify their identity as a human being in the planet and how they go about their community and how they go about their family and the roles that they play, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's very important work, and I can see why you get so excited about helping somebody and seeing them move beyond their condition and then get better.
And I
So,
think it's really important to also acknowledge that um, it's not just the client that you're working with; it's very much the support network. They're just as important because they're obviously going through it all as well in equal, if not sometimes greater, implications in terms of their life functionally. So to be able to, yeah, assist the client, but also work with the family and use a really collaborative approach, I think, yeah, it makes all the difference.
okay, interesting, and I agree with you 100%. How do you recruit the family? Are they usually involved in the sessions? Do the sessions all happen in clinic, or do they happen at home? How does that work?
Yeah, so with the clients that I have, most of them come to the clinic, and it's with their partners. So as much as I can do in an hour session, really the rest of the time, every minute of every day, they're with their carer. So I want essentially to be able to train them to be a mini speech pathologist that's specific to the client because they're going to do most of the work. I'm just teaching them how to do it. So yeah, I think it's really important that families involved just to be able to get you know progress and move towards your goals as quickly as you can.
Is that a relief for the family members to come there and get some kind of pathway to supporting their loved one in the frustration or in the challenges or in the difficulty of not being able to communicate? Because I I coach some carers of stroke survivors who are struggling with not knowing how to be a carer specific to that person's condition, that person's deficits as a result of stroke, because they've never been in involved in a medical setup anywhere, let alone specialize in stroke, and they were just a regular person going about their life, and now they're a carer.
Yeah.
So, how do the carers respond when they've been given these tools?
Oh, so well and so positively. And I think if anything, because obviously there's so many tools that you can implement, and you want to find something that works for the family. You don't want to just say, "Hey, do this," and they're trying to adapt to something that just doesn't work. So I think in a lot of the initial sessions, it's really about finding the right tool and being that unbiased individual within that partnership and saying, "Hey," um, talking to the client saying, "Hey, do you think that this would be useful?" Tell me yes or no if they're nonverbal, or thumbs up, thumbs down, nod, shake, or verbalize yes or no. Tell me, do you think that this would be useful? And they can tell you objectively, yes, this is going to be great, or no, I'm not keen. And it doesn't really impact the carer. They can kind of uh, be motivated by what the client's wanting to do, what the carer can do, and then kind of working on that more collaboratively instead of it just being pushed upon them. So I think it's a really nice way to show the tools, work on it together, and then go from there.
Is there a lot of frustration and crying and emotions during a therapy session, or during uh, a session where the client's in a clinic with their family? Do you get uh, to see people really sort of in pain, or the opposite, really happy with what they've been able to achieve? Is there much expression that you get to see?
Yeah, yeah. Um, every session. uh, I also It might just be the relationships that we've created, but I will often get phone calls from carers just saying, "Hey, I need a chat." Family members might not understand, or it's someone that does understand where this particular client might be at. So certainly a little bit of counselling involved, and just having that really nice relationship. And there's certainly some of the lows, but also I get texts throughout the week being like, "He said this," or "Guess what? Guess what just happened?" So that's always really exciting, and I love getting those messages. And so a lot of, or a particular therapy approach that we use for aphasia is called melodic intonation therapy. So it's through singing and fluency. And with these particular clients that we work on, there's always happy tears when they start to sing, because it just comes out. And obviously they're great songs. We do Kiss and Eagles and Elvis, so it's just fun as it is. But those emotions that they feel, just to be able to express in whatever way, is pretty incredible.
Can you tell me, this is the multi-million dollar question. Can you tell me, why is it possible for people to sing, and why is it not possible for them to just speak? This is amazing and brilliant. And you see it in Alzheimer's patients who are not physical, and then they hear a lovely song and they get up to the dance floor and they dance around like they used to 30, 40, 50 years ago. What happens there? Which is there a different pathway that gets activated? How does that work? And then the follow-up question is, how do we bridge that experience into talking?
Yeah, great question. So, a lot of that is to do with procedural memory. So, people with aphasia would be able to tell you the days of the week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, counting, happy birthday. It's all things that we sort of have learnt and repeated so much over time that it's just there. So you'll find with songs as well, for these particular clients that we work with, um, there's the melody to sort of carry it through, but also they're obviously familiar songs, so they've got that long term memory. Obviously, we wonder how that would translate when it's words like yes and no, and mine and yours and drink, those particular things. But for example, when we sing happy birthday, that procedure comes through, and it doesn't necessarily need a context, it's there. But with yes and no and words, we're obviously, we've got the word, but we're applying it to a context. There's a few more levels in terms of how we use that language, and semantically how it's related to the context and the situation. To answer your question of how to put them together, that's kind of how melodic intonation therapy was introduced. So it's using rhythm, but in speech. So that's sort of an approach that we're using. But I think, yeah, repetition as well is gonna be the big difference.
So the getting them to sing a song that has the word yes in there or no in there, is that helping with the inability to say yes or no individually or separately when they're just speaking? Is that how you kind of train it, or
Yeah, not necessarily. Because again, it has to be to do with the semantics of the
mm,
conversation, but it
mm,
would be something like, "How are you?" or "Banana." So you're kind of carrying those syllables across, and you'd find that, yeah, you'd practice that phrase, and then you'd ask the question, "What's yellow that monkeys eat?" And then they'd be able to go, "Banana," which is just insane. I just still don't fully understand how it works, but it does work, which is amazing.
I know that there's a lot more. I'm not sure what the word is, study, feedback, research. There's a lot more information to gather on the field. And I know that it's pretty difficult to answer my questions just like that in a really short amount of time. But I appreciate you trying. Now, you you're a little bit like me. You tend to get sucked in, right? So somebody sends you an SMS and you think, oh my God, like my day is done. I've achieved amazing things. I feel really great about that because somebody gave you feedback. And that's what happened to me with the podcast. It was never meant to be 150 episodes. You know, I never had any real plans for it. But then somebody
Amazing.
on the other side of the planet says, I really enjoyed that episode. Thank you so much. That's just like me. I can't believe that I found your podcast. And then I'm like, well, I don't want to do it anymore those days, you know, when it drives me nuts and I'm frustrated and I'm tired and I'm having my own stroke recovery issues. And I say, oh, but that person sent me an SMS. So if I don't do it, you know, that's not the reason to stop. My problems are not the reason to stop. I should keep going because there's people around the planet that
Making a difference.
yeah, that want to that want to hear the next episode, and it does make a difference to them, and therefore it makes a difference to me, and the
Yeah.
cycle continues, and I can't jump out of the loop, right?
Oh gosh.
Do you relate to that?
I do, yes, definitely. In many different ways, obviously with ANFA being one of them, but
Yeah,
even with uh, clients, it's more similar in the sense that I can't say no if it can help someone. So I have my own private practice. And I get calls. Obviously, we've got a bit of a waiting list, as most speech pathologists do. But any client that calls and they're 2 or younger and they have a language delay, I just can't say no. Just because it's that peak developmental time. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, no, add them in. Oh, okay, add them in, or I'll somehow figure out how to help, whether it's just doing a free consult with parents to educate them on how to do it, or yeah, so I'm pretty hopeless in that sense as well. If you can help, I mean, why not? You've got the
yeah,
skill, or in your case, you've got the experience and that really unique perspective and the skill to be able to run a podcast. So yeah, you can't stop.
yeah. I love it. So let's talk about ANFA, a night for aphasia. So not only can you not stop, you also needed to take it to the next level, right? So you've got a speech pathology practice. You help people that you can't really fit in, and then one day you decided to create a evening to celebrate, raise awareness, I imagine to raise funds. Tell me a little bit about why you started a night for aphasia.
Yeah, fantastic. So we had our first event in 2019, and that was the same year that I had met this client. So we actually pulled the event together in about 6 weeks, which was just awesome. And I think, yeah, it was perfect timing because we were kind of striking while the iron was hot, and had some really great responses from peers and um, larger organisations. So we were lucky to be sponsored by the Brain Foundation and Scope Australia, and they really helped us get things together quickly. And we had 120 guests attend for the first one. Professor Miranda Rose, who specialises in aphasia research, was able to speak. So she gave a really unique perspective. And we had a couple of fabulous guest speakers. One who was a person with aphasia, and she just brought the house down. Her speech was just so unique and pure, and it was the perspective that everybody needed to hear. And I honestly think that she's the one that started the questions of when's the next event, what's going to happen next, sort of thing. So really, really lucky to be able to do it again. Obviously, not last year because of COVID, but we've got an event which I believe you're coming to,
Absolutely.
which is exciting, in July, end of July this year. So essentially, the mission of the event is to raise awareness. If we can teach one person in the room what aphasia looks like, or how they can interact with someone with aphasia to make their life easier in the community, we've succeeded. We are really fortunate to we're now starting to get a lot of guests that have aphasia come along, and the ones that are comfortable are going to have a name tag and say, I have aphasia, please come and chat, come and learn about it from the ones that know it the best. So yeah, it's going to be a really, really fantastic evening. We've got a panel of guest speakers. So we have a speech pathologist who's jumping on, a person with aphasia, and a carer of a person with aphasia. So 3 really unique perspectives, and some food and drinks flowing, and some great raffles and giveaways. So yeah, it'll be a really, really great night.
Sounds like I am really looking forward to it. I would love some tips on how to actually interact with people with aphasia, though, because although I've had a stroke and although I went through not aphasia, but some real serious cognitive issues at one point, I've never experienced aphasia, especially anything long term that impacted my ability to communicate. And I found myself fumbling and stumbling across those conversations, and I've found myself saying some things that come from a really naive place about people with aphasia, and it's not my fault. It's just that I've got no clue. So if somebody comes across somebody with aphasia, or if a family member might be listening to this who has recently had somebody who's now experiencing aphasia, what are some of the tips that you could give them and me about how to be sensitive, I'm not sure if that's the word, to that person who has aphasia?
Yeah, absolutely. So the things that I've learned from my experience so far, and I'm still learning, I think the most important thing is to take your time when you're speaking, speak slowly. Be patient is definitely something that I've learnt from many, many reports of people with aphasia over time, is that it might take them a bit of time to put their message together or work out what they need to say. So embrace those awkward silences and just wait for them to say what they'd like to say. I think it's really important to remember that their intellect is intact. So they might appear differently or they might sound differently, but you certainly don't need to dumb down your language to be able to interact with them. And yeah, just speak slowly and yeah, be patient. It is difficult because of the different types of aphasia. There are different presentations or different difficulties that they might have. But yeah, just be mindful and patient and wait.
Yeah, sometimes it's a little bit difficult for people to wait because I know there's some information that you want and you haven't got time and you want it now, and who knows what. I don't know what goes on, but I think most people would sort of stumble across that. At least I'm speaking from my own experience, from uh, just the bad habit of perhaps telling one of the kids to spit it out, or uh, telling whomever, a friend of mine, like, what do you want about? I don't know what you're talking about. I just find myself going back to those old habits of talking to people who are quite capable of talking, but perhaps, distracted or stuck in the conversation or whatever. And us just sort of saying, tongue in cheek, spit it out, tell us. And kind of that sort of tends to be the place that I might go to and be insensitive as a result to that, to somebody with aphasia. Have you found, does aphasia get in the way of people going back to employment and being fully able to return to work, say their other deficits have been sorted out or overcome? What does it stop people from doing?
There's definitely a functional impact. And so the patients that I'm working with uh, do have quite limited output in terms of their functionality in society and in the community. But having said that, like Amelia Clarke from Game of Thrones had an aneurysm and had aphasia, and then has fully recovered and finished off the Game of Thrones season. So that you can fully recover. And yeah, she's obviously back to it, and a lot of people with aphasia have had it and worked hard and recovered fortunately quite quickly. A lot of it within the spontaneous recovery, but then some it might take years to recover, and some might not ever get fully back to where they were previously. And depending on the symptoms and the level of severity, there's certainly the possibility of them not being able to go back to work or participate how they'd like to in the community, which is, yeah, really upsetting.
Yeah, I suppose it's an interesting way to go about um, motivating oneself about whether or not you're going to do work in this space or not. It's like trying to give people the opportunity to get back to something that perhaps was lost and, you know, would bring them a lot of joy. Just talking would bring people a lot of joy. But then that other level of, it stops people from being fully active member of their community or their family is difficult. Do people, uh, does the general public, and I'm generalizing and, I'm not trying to pick on anybody, but does the general public make it harder for people with aphasia? Now, I'll tell you why. And I know that in Melbourne, where we both live, I believe,
Yep.
we've got one of the best city designs in the world. So if you've got a wheelchair, you can skate down a ramp when you're crossing the road and get up on another ramp. When you want to get on a bus, there's a ramp to get on the bus. When you want to get on a train or a tram, the wheelchair just rolls in and it's all perfectly fine. So there's a lot of awareness about physical disability that's visible. But is there a lack of awareness about, for lack of a better term, invisible disability, and how we support people that are experiencing things like communication issues?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people are very quick to judge. And this is obviously again a generalization, but a lot of people are often quick to judge and don't give the time that that person with aphasia might need. Um, Often that judgment just comes from them being unsure of their own safety. But you can imagine the impact that that would have on a person with aphasia who might be in a therapy session trying to practice their community engagement. So that might be a therapy session out in Burke Street, and they might be trying to initiate a conversation by saying hello. You can imagine the mental health implications for someone trying to do that when a member of the public would just be scared and walk away or say, "Oh, what are you doing? Get out of here." So yeah, certainly I think because it is invisible, it is really, really difficult, and you don't want to go down the path of putting labels or lanyards or um, ways to sort of label or identify yourself differently. So it's a really tricky balance, and it's something where I think ANFA hopefully will fill that gap a little bit, just helping create awareness. I mean, aphasia is more common than cerebral palsy, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis combined. And I know I knew about all three of those things before knowing about aphasia. And it's just the awareness. It's just the awareness, I think, will make a really big difference.
That's stunning what you just said. That is stunning, because I've heard of all of those things and I didn't know what aphasia was until I had a stroke. And aphasia was a word that was being used a lot in stroke communities. Um, it seems like people who have aphasia are missing the one thing that allows them to be advocates for themselves. They're missing the ability to communicate. And therefore, if you can't communicate your challenge, you can't make anyone pay attention and take notice, especially at the political level and at the level where perhaps, you know, where you could ask for funding, for example. I know that stroke suffers the same thing. Stroke's the leading cause of disability, yet we hear about all of the fundraisers for cancer research, whether it's breast cancer, prostate cancer, any type of cancer, you name it. In Australia, we do awareness about cancer like no other person, no other country on the planet. But when it comes to stroke awareness, I feel like even the Stroke Foundation struggles to utilize the resources that are available to all these other, I'm not sure, ailments. And then when you have aphasia, it could have happened because you're a stroke, and that's another level removed from the difficulty that stroke people face. You have now aphasia people who often come from a stroke background, and then they can't even speak and be their own advocates. I can at least be my own advocate, and I advocate for stroke survivors, but I don't know how to advocate for aphasia, people who experience aphasia. I don't know how to do it because I'm not in that space. I haven't been there. So I find it really disheartening, I suppose. But nonetheless, I'm still doing this part. I'm doing what I can in the way that I can. And I love supporting people like you because you're being the voice for these people. Do you feel like you're the voice? Is that how you would explain it or express yourself? Or was there another way to explain or to express that better?
I hope that I'm getting across aphasia and the impact that it has on these people and their families. I think it's more just advocacy, really, just really trying to advocate for these clients that might not be able to do it themselves, but also supporting the ones that can and providing them a platform to be able to really get the word out there. And I think, it's so prevalent, and it just needs the light shine on it. So our logo is a spotlight, and I think, hopefully the amount of A Night for Aphasias, plural, that we can do, the more people we can get on board and just raise that awareness. But it is really difficult, and I think because it is invisible and it presents in so many different ways, and these different ways are very similar to other presentations. It's really hard to sort of quantify or, it's hard to help people understand what it looks like. So we're working on how we can make that happen. But advocating as much as we can in whatever way we can is really important. And the same as what you're doing, it's just fantastic.
Yeah. Is somebody typing in the background?
It's my dogs. Sorry.
That's all right.
They're pitter-patter feet.
That's all right. Okay. No problem. So as we get to the end and wrap this up, tell me about the event, and is tickets still available? Is it sold out? What's the situation?
Yeah, of course. So the event has now been moved, thanks to COVID, to the 30th of July. So we're in our event month. It's at Higher Ground in Melbourne, which is just a stunning venue. Just in its own record. But it'll be a really lovely evening. It's at 7 o'clock until 11. Tickets are $65, and it includes a 3-hour drinks and food package, as well as obviously access to see our amazing panel speakers. We've got some awesome raffle and silent auction items, and all of the proceeds will go towards making the event bigger and getting more people involved for the next event. We've also got the Australian Aphasia Association and Aphasia Victoria putting in a silent auction item, and whatever that sells for, they get the full proceeds. So it means that they can get a bit of a boost into their organisations as well, which is really lovely. Tickets can be purchased via our Instagram or our Facebook page. There's a link to try booking on those.
What are the Instagram and Facebook page
Yes, so both called A Night For Aphasia,
That's
all
it.
one
Just look
word.
it up on Instagram and look it up on Facebook. Well, I am really thankful that you're doing the work that you're doing. So I appreciate you for that. I also appreciate you coming onto the podcast, sharing your story, helping me become a little bit smarter about aphasia and understanding more about aphasia. I love the work that you're doing for stroke survivors, advocating for them, and all the work that you do. And I imagine all the other people, not only stroke survivors who have aphasia, who came from a different background. Um, so thank you for that. And I look forward to meeting you. I can't wait for the night. I've seen the venue and I think it looks stunning. You've chosen very, very well. And as far as the $65 cover charge, um, I'm a one drink wonder. So if if it helps, I'm only going to have one drink. So hopefully the money that I don't spend on drinking goes to the community.
Thank you. Oh gosh, I think I'll be in the same boat as you. No, but thank you so much for having me. Seriously, really, really special to meet you. You're a pretty amazing human, and the things that you're doing, awesome. I need to go back and listen to more podcasts. I think I was doing a few over the week, and you've had some really fascinating guest speakers, and I'm feeling really lucky to be a part of that parcel now.
You know what I had, which was really amazing? I actually had aphasia, people with aphasia on there. And some of the conversations were just so heartfelt because one of the guys was 19 and he came on board. I reached out to him. I didn't obviously don't know that people have aphasia when I reach out to them. And he just said yes straight away. And then I think he said, "Oh, and by the way, I have aphasia. So is that okay?" And I'm like, "Well, how else are we going to get you on if there's no other way to get you on?" So they're really short episodes. The conversation is really, short and succinct so that we can just get general questions, but it's not really about what they're going to share or can or can't share. It's about just getting them on to speak, right? So
Absolutely.
I found that really, really amazing because I did try to get on some aphasia, I'm going to call them aphasia warriors. Um, and a few people at the beginning, two, three, four in a row said, "Look, I have aphasia. I can't do it. I'm not going to do it." Um, and I didn't completely understand what that meant when they said they can't. I imagine there's uh, a little bit of anxiety, perhaps, that they feel due to the fact that they can't speak, and they are going to go on a podcast, and it's going to go out to maybe hundreds of thousands of people. I don't know what, right? So I don't push the thing. I don't push um,
The why.
the why or the why not. I love to have people on, and if they can't make it, then that's perfectly fine. But when I get people on who have aphasia and we go through talking to them, it is next level amazing because it's the hardest thing that they are trying to overcome. So Jack was on episode 127, and the episode's labeled "Living with Aphasia After Stroke," and he was, I think, 15 years old when he had a stroke and now has aphasia, and now he's trying to overcome that, and he's doing some great things, and he's going back to school, and he's starting to get back to that part of his life that he had to put on hold when he was 15 and experienced a stroke. So that was really great. And then I also interviewed, so the other person was Duncan Campling, and he was a stroke survivor, locked in syndrome, um, hasn't been able to express himself properly for quite a long time. And what we did was we pre-prepared the questions, and I sent them to him, and he responded during the episode with the answers that he had pre-recorded via his computerized voice.
Yeah.
And he's a bit of an English gentleman from his origins, and as a result of that, he had a bit of an English accent to his voice. So we had a really good conversation about 15 or so questions, and he responded to them in a way that was really useful. And we just edited that. So it's a really great episode for people to listen to just get an understanding of how some other people that are experiencing aphasia or difficulties communicating are getting along, and they're not leaving any stone unturned. They really are taking every opportunity that they can to practice. So just a little bit of inspiration there. Hopefully that
Amazing.
people will resonate with that. Olivia, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to catching up with you in a couple of weeks.
Pleasure, me too. We'll cheers with a beer
Yeah,
on Friday the 30th.
done. Thanks so much for joining me on today's Recovery After Stroke podcast. Do you ever wish there was just one place to go for resources, advice, and support in your stroke recovery? Whether you've been navigating your journey for weeks, months, or years, I know firsthand how difficult it can be to get the answers you need. The road is both physically and mentally challenging, from reclaiming your independence to getting back to work to rebuilding your confidence and more. The symptoms don't follow a rule book, and as soon as you leave the hospital, you no longer have medical professionals on tap. And I know for me, it felt as if I was teaching myself a new language from scratch with no native speaker in sight. If this sounds like you, I'm here to tell you that you're not alone, and there is a better way to navigate your recovery and rebuild a fulfilling life that you love. I've been creating an inclusive, supportive, and accessible membership community called Recovery After Stroke. This is an all-in-one support and resource program and is designed to help you take your health into your own hands. This is your guidebook through every step in your journey, from reducing fatigue to strengthening brain health to overcoming anxiety and more. To find out more and to join the community, just head to recoveryafterstroke.com. See you next time.
Importantly, we present many podcasts designed to give you an insight and understanding into the experiences of other individuals. Opinions and treatment protocols discussed during any podcast are the individual's own experience, and we do not necessarily share the same opinion, nor do we recommend any treatment protocol discussed. All content on this website and any linked blog, podcast, or video material controlled this website or content is created and produced for informational purposes only and is largely based on the personal experience of Bill Gassiamas. The content is intended to complement your medical treatment and support healing. It is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice and should not be relied on as health advice. The information is general and may not be suitable for your personal injuries, circumstances, or health objectives. Do not use our content as a standalone resource to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease for therapeutic purposes or as a substitute for the advice of a health professional. Never delay seeking advice or disregard the advice of a medical professional, your doctor, or your rehabilitation program based on our content. If you have any questions or concerns about your health or medical condition, please seek guidance from a doctor or other medical professional. If you are experiencing a health emergency or think you might be, call 000 if in Australia, or your local emergency number immediately for emergency assistance, or go to the nearest hospital emergency department. Medical information changes constantly. While we aim to provide current, quality information in our content, we do not provide any guarantees and assume no legal liability or responsibility for the accuracy, currency, or completeness of the content. If you choose to rely on any information within our content, you do so solely at your own risk. We are careful with links we provide. However, third-party links from our website are followed at your own risk, and we are not responsible for any information you find there.